Today, we're looking at Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red is Fire Engine Red as a color. Nice match to the name. Absolutely. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Levenger True Writer with a broad nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we look at the writing sample, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, immediately dunk it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that this ink flees up the page. It leaves a little kind of very light red behind, and then the red shows up. But there's no real resistance to stopping it from any of that at this point. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And while it doesn't completely flee, it doesn't really stay either. It's a little darker of the very light red left behind, but I really think this ink is not going to have much keeping it in place. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, we see that it does have a little bit of feathering, it does have some spread, but it is completely readable. That makes me feel safe using this in a note-taking situation when I might have to go back and highlight. And that's a surprising result when we look at what happened with water. Water completely reactivates and pulls up almost all of this ink off the page. We see the dots of the rhodia paper, we see some of the white of the paper. It looks like water is all that's going to be needed to remove this from your pen. But pen flush, 30 seconds of pen flush on the page, and it did the same thing as water. We're getting no added benefit for the added chemicals, so I don't think we would need to get there. So why not test bleach, because the spot's already there. And as would be expected, bleach completely obliterates it. Please don't use bleach to get this out of your pen. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red has a viscosity of 2.39, which makes it a very average flow. To find my average dry time, I use my writing samples done with the Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and rhodia paper with an extra fine and medium nib. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red has an average dry time of 15 seconds, making it normal. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, and a vibrant, alive red. This color is great. If you like red or you need red, this is a great red. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Fantastic tone. Fantastic tone of red. The medium, same tone, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. The smear, I believe you could recover this. Tomoe River. No bleeding. Yes, we get ghosting. As a tone all over, it's much more muted. Look at that. That's pretty muted in comparison. Now, I don't know if that's because of it being the cream paper or that being the heavy coating on that paper, but it's definitely more muted. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The fine, the extra fine, I was talking before about the 1.1, the extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It takes 16 seconds to dry. It's still a really nice color, just muted, almost dusty looking on top. Medium, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 21 seconds to dry.
Scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any up here. And the smear, I don't think you could recover this if you had to. Rhodia paper. Rhodia gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, and that vibrant red is back because we're off that Tomoe River. Extra fine, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 12 seconds to dry, beautiful red. The medium, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both shows us we're not getting color variation. We didn't. The smear test says we could likely recover this if we smeared it. I want to look at the limon paper, which is horrible, next, because I'm interested. It didn't do it there, see? It didn't make it like dusty as a tone. I'm going to change the order here. I'm going to do the limon paper next because, well, we know it's going to be horrible. Or is it? Fantastic, right? Another ink that works for this paper. I think that's 2 that work for this paper. Now there's spots of bleed. I'm going to grab a pencil. There's spots of bleed. It's not reaching through the other side. This is all the spots of bleed that I'm seeing. It's not reaching through. It's not being obtrusive. It's not stopping you from using the other side of the paper. It's not having show through. It did not touch the other paper anywhere near it. The 1.1 does have some feather. It doesn't have any spread. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine does have feather. Does have spread. It does not have feather. It's spread to about a medium. It has no feather, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The medium is a noticeably darker tone with that it spread. It's spread, so you have to write a little bit bigger here. No halo, no sheen, no shade, no feathering in that writing. 14 seconds to dry. I'm just curious. See, the broad Levenger, which is a wet writer, did not come through. It didn't come through. I didn't place it down because I know that that's just got that tiny bit of wet. Still 14 seconds. And that's dry. From the writing, that's dry. This is pretty nice. This works really well on this paper. So if you like the limon paper, get this ink. This is a great red ink for you. The scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. We weren't expecting it. The smear test says you can recover this if you smear it, even though it takes 10 and 14 seconds to dry. So I look at black and red paper. The black and red paper gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. That fantastic red is there. Strangely, the extra fine looks like that dustier red. It's more muted. It's not really dusty. It's definitely more muted. Extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 8 seconds to dry. The medium has no spread. There's feathering going on in the word quick. In the world. Okay. There's feathering going on in the word quick. There's some feathering going on in the word jumps. So there's little feathering going on in dry. Nothing distracting to stop you from using it. But there is, some spread and there is little bits of feathering. No halo, sheen, or shade. 13 seconds to dry. I don't know why I missed the medium scrubby or smear, but the extra fine scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. And the extra fine, if you smeared it, you would likely be able to recover it. So I tested the Elan Job Notebook. These are notebooks that only have like 8-10 pages in them, and they're made for contractors doing one job at a time. And contractor can be anybody who's doing jobs just for this client and that client and that client. And this is a great way to keep track of those things. How'd it do? Not too good. Tons of bleeding. These spots did did touch the page underneath. This is where the scrubby is, where I put it on stupid thick. It did not touch the page where the writing is that bled a lot. but it didn't touch the page underneath. It does make me feel that the underside of this paper is unusable. The 1.1 does have spread, doesn't have feathering, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine has some spread. It has some feathering, light feathering all over, not distracting that would stop you from being able to use it. No halo, sheen, or shade, 2 seconds to dry. The medium has spread, has a ton of feathering, to the point that in certain areas it looks blurry, it looks really bad, it looks gross. It has no halo, sheen, or shade. It took 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. The smear test, you would likely be able to recover this if you smeared while you were writing. And that's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I've chosen Private Reserve's Copper Burst because it's a very nice brown ink, and I don't think that people put brown and red together enough, even though they very often look quite nice together, at least in my opinion. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Fire Engine Red? I think it's named perfectly. It's not too often you come across inks that the name and the color is exactly what you would expect. And that is what happens here, and that makes me happy with it. On top of that, this is very bright, vibrant, screaming, which really helps when it comes to my editing notes for things or going and adding additional information that I want to bring attention to, because this ink demands attention. Now, what it lacks in shading, it makes up for as a great color red. Thanks for watching.